I recently went on Royal Caribbean's Ovation of the Seas. It was the very first time I've been on the ship, but more importantly, it's a new ship in a new place because Ovation is sailing out of Los Angeles. And Royal Caribbean is adding more ships to the West Coast, with Ovation of the Seas joining this summer, Quantum of the Seas coming soon, and even Serenade of the Seas going to San Diego. And it's really part of a bigger push to offer more cruises out of the West Coast. And this is going to open up many more options to explore the Mexican Riviera. Now, Royal Caribbean invited me to go on Ovation of the Seas. I was a guest of theirs as part of a media event, so I didn't pay for my cabin on this particular sailing, but I've done cruises out of the West Coast on Navigator of the Seas. That's been the only ship available to offer West Coast cruises for a couple of years, but that's about to change with Ovation of the Seas. Ovation is a Quantum class ship, which means she's significantly larger than Navigator. In fact, there's about 1,000 extra passengers on Ovation of the Seas, and what Ovation offers, like all Quantum class ships, is a number of features on board that truly go well beyond the Voyager class that, of course, Navigator is well known for. Ovation has features like bumper cars, the North Star observation pod, ripcord by iFly skydiving simulator, and one of my favorite spaces on any cruise ship, 270, which is a giant theater on the back of the ship that integrates technology and show. It's really impressive. Something else different about Ovation of the Seas is the fact that it has a Royal Esplanade, not a Royal Promenade, which of course leads to the question, okay, Matt, what's the difference between the two? And really, it's the layout. The Promenade is more cavernous and feels, depending on the ship that you're on, more like a shopping mall, whereas the Esplanade has a little more curves to it, and it almost feels like more of a neighborhood feel. I mean, that's more subject to opinion, but I do prefer the Promenade personally, but I think the Esplanade has some nice things about it and doesn't make it feel like it just goes on forever. For this cruise, I was given a Category 2D balcony cabin. Room 11616, which is of course located on Deck 11, or as the ship's elevator mysteriously calls it, Deck 11. This is pretty much your standard ocean view balcony cabin. It has a balcony, it has space for 2 people, I believe, in this particular cabin. There's a large couch, a vanity seating area, and your own private bathroom. It measures 198 square feet with a balcony space of 55 square feet. The great thing about this cabin is it's conveniently located right off the aft elevators, and I love having a balcony, especially on the Mexican Riviera, because unlike the part of Mexico you visit in the Caribbean, it's not nearly as hot and humid over in the west side of Mexico. And obviously that can change depending on the time of year, but when I went on this cruise, which was at the very end of May, early June, it was fabulous. Dare I say chilly outside. It wasn't quite there, but at any rate, it was really nice having that balcony space. And the great thing about having a balcony, especially on the Quantum class ships, is how much storage space there is. There are so many closets and areas, especially above the bed and near it. It's incredible. Now, this ship came out in 2016, and you can see that technology started becoming more important. There are 2 USB plugs in the vanity area, and of course, plenty of power outlets, including one set near the bed. Now, there's only one set on one side of the bed, not the other side. This is something that's changed in more newer Royal Caribbean cruise ships, but it's nice to have these outlets. And while I still recommend bringing a power outlet extender or a USB hub with you, I do think it's nice to have as many outlets as there are, and there's probably enough for most people in here. It's just that sometimes you might want to have a few more devices plugged in. One thing I also really like about Quantum class cabins is the showers, the bathrooms in general. I think there's a lot of space, and the showers feel far less cramped than you'd find on a Voyager or Freedom class ship. Another nice benefit moving up to a Quantum class compared to Voyager or Freedom class cruise ships. Speaking of cabins, I should mention that Ovation of the Seas has a number of solo cabins. Now, I did not stay in this. I stayed in a regular standard balcony room that can accommodate 2 people, but it is worth noting that a ship like Ovation has the most solo cabins you'll find on any ship in the fleet. Now, ordinarily, solo cruisers staying in a regular cabin have to pay a hefty single supplement fee to make up for the missing second passenger. However, you'll find 16 windowless inside rooms on Ovation of the Seas, along with 12 balcony rooms that are meant for cruising by themselves. So this is really neat. The advantage of a studio cabin is you do not pay the single supplement fee, which you would normally have to pay if you're cruising solo by yourself in a regular room. However, in some cases, the studio cabin is actually more expensive than a regular cabin, even if you are paying the single supplement fee. So make sure you work with your travel agent to find the best deal for you. For this particular cruise, I was actually sailing solo. My wife and family were left behind at home, and I went on this by myself. And cruising solo can be a little daunting, especially if you've never done it before. I think it's really liberating in the sense you get to do what you want when you want to do it, but there are many times in which it feels like, you really feel a little bit lonely, and maybe you want to be able to talk to people more often. Now, I've been able to get around this in a lot of cases because I've done a number of solo cruises. However, I do think Ovation is a fabulous ship for somebody who is cruising solo because it's just well designed in a lot of cases. Number one, it has my favorite buffet when you get on the Quantum class ships because I think there's something about the Quantum class that is just so well set up. It's a giant space with lots of seating and plenty of buffet stations. Like even on the Oasis class and the Icon class cruise ships, which are much larger than Ovation of the Seas, their Windjammer is significantly smaller. So it feels like, and I haven't measured it, so please don't yell at me if you actually have figured out the measurements of the Windjammer. I really feel like the Windjammer on Quantum class ships is the biggest in the fleet. And that really extends out to the seating and choices of food in here. Like there's food stations and cooking stations. And the best part about the Windjammer on Ovation and any Quantum class ship is the fact you can go outside. There's seating on the aft part of the ship on the back. I absolutely love this area. Now, regardless if I'm cruising with friends or family or just by myself, one of my favorite things to do is, of course, check out the live entertainment. They have the music hall, which had a fabulous journey band when I was on board. And then there's also, of course, my favorite place, which is the Amber and Oak Pub. I love the pub and the Schooner Bar by extension, and I think they're my favorite places to go. And when I was here on Ovation of the Seas, I was able to check out Darla Fox, who is one of the best, if not the best, pub singers in the fleet. And if you're watching this video when it comes out or around when it comes out, she'll be on Ovation of the Seas for a few more months. If there's one thing that a ship like Ovation of the Seas does well, it is the entertainment. Quantum class ships are well known for, I think, some of the best entertainment at sea. And there are 3 fabulous must-see shows on board. Each evening, there's going to be at least one production show, along with various live entertainment. I already talked about the pub and the Schooner Bar and whatnot. But the 3 must-see shows on Ovation are the perfect escape. I think The Beautiful Dream is the best show of the bunch because it's a journey through one man's unrealized yearnings as seen through his dreams. At least that's what Royal Caribbean says anyway. But it's really a beautiful show that perfectly takes advantage of Royal Caribbean's excellent production values. Over in 270, you'll find Spectra's Cabaret. Now, I had first seen this show on Anthem of the Seas, but there's a reason why they copied it and put it on Ovation. It is that darn good. And in 270, the production value of the venue with the robo screens and everything else around you and the setup of the venue itself, it's beautiful. And it works so well because you get to combine the performances and the technology in the venue. Lastly, you have Live Love Legs, which is where the cast really gets to show off their vocal talents. Our cruise only had one port stop, which is Ensenada, Mexico, and it's a port I've never been to, but it's also the port that everybody says is absolutely terrible. I joke that Ensenada's slogan must be, hey, at least we're not Nassau, Bahamas, because Nassau, Bahamas, I think, is largely considered the worst, quote-unquote, cruise port out there. Ensenada is located just south of California, right on the Mexican border, or close to it anyway. And what makes Ensenada so notable is that it's so unremarkable. Unlike other ports on the Mexican Riviera, down the Baja Peninsula, there's just not a lot to do. Going into it, I understood that Ensenada was not great, so I set my expectations low, but also came up with a plan, and that is tacos. Because you really can't screw up tacos in Mexico. And my idea was, I'm going to get off the ship, I'm going to walk into town, get some tacos, maybe a cerveza or two, and hey, that sounds like a great day. And you know what? It worked out pretty well. I had Googled a couple of places, and to give full credit, a lot of our viewers offered their suggestions of where I should go. And I tried out a couple different spots, and you know what? It was really good. Yeah, Ensenada isn't going to win any awards for being the most beautiful port in the world, but walking into it, and once you got to the downtown area, I really felt like it was no worse than maybe Cozumel's downtown. And the great thing about it was far less humid than Cozumel. And number 2, the tacos actually were really good. I did the walk back and forth. It really wasn't bad at all. And I found that once I got downtown, it was easy enough to find a spot to get some tacos, sit down, enjoy them, and then walk around. There were also shopping opportunities around as well. But I really think Ensenada's appeal, if you're not going to go do a formal tour somewhere like visit a winery, is to really just kind of use it like a city day. And I think just enjoy what downtown has to offer, which is fairly inexpensive food and drink and kind of the city life. I understand why people don't love Ensenada. I'm not here to tell you that it's the best place on earth, but I really don't think it was as bad as people say it was. I simply think that it just doesn't offer that much, but if you have the right expectations in mind, it's really not that bad. Royal Caribbean is going to be playing a game of musical chairs with which ship is going to be offering cruises out of Southern California, but the good news is it's either going to be Ovation of the Seas or Quantum of the Seas, depends on the season they're going to be moving in and out of there. But the bottom line is this offers you a bigger ship with more to do if you want to do those 3 the 6-night cruises out of San Pedro, which is about a 45-minute or so drive from LAX airport. Again, it depends on traffic because it is Los Angeles. It's really impressive when you think about the fact that up until very recently, there was only one ship in Los Angeles. And before that, Royal Caribbean had like a 10-year gap of no ships there. But in a very short period, we'll have 3 ships sailing from LA before Ovation shifts out. And then in 2026, Royal Caribbean will expand operations to San Diego because they'll have Serenade of the Seas home porting in San Diego to offer even a more convenient option for folks that are in the Southern California market. And perhaps even more grandiose plans on the horizon. While I was on Ovation of the Seas, there was a question and answer session with Royal Caribbean executives, and somebody asked, quite frankly, if there's any plans for Royal Caribbean to bring an Oasis-class ship to Los Angeles or have plans for building a new home port in the Southern California market. The answer shot back almost immediately was, I cannot answer that question, and then later joked that they would get in trouble with the cruise line's PR department if they talked about that subject. Now, what I find interesting, and again, this is me reading tea leaves and guessing, and I really have no inside information, but usually when someone asks a question that Royal Caribbean has no plans for, like, hey, when is Royal Caribbean going to offer cruises from, like, Charleston, South Carolina? They give, like, this, like, generic answer of, well, you know, we're always dreaming of new ideas, we're always considering new options, and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's that, like, we're not going to do it, but we're going to be nice to you and answer it in that way. But the fact the question came back with a complete, I can't answer that question, almost to me seems like a non-response response, like we can't talk about it because maybe there's something happening. I could be dead wrong on this. This is just my guess based on the reaction, and I have been very wrong about a lot of other things in the past, so please don't read into this. I'm just simply sharing my own personal opinion based on what I heard there. I had a great time on Ovation of the Seas, and if you're looking for a West Coast cruise option, I think it's a great choice for a ship to go out of, because having done both Navigator and now Ovation out of LA, big ships, they just offer so much more. Nothing wrong with Navigator. I love Navigator. I'll go back on Navigator tomorrow if someone wants me to, but I gotta say, I really enjoyed Ovation of the Seas quite a lot. Let me know in the comments below, do you have any plans to cruise out of California? And are you excited for more ships in the Southern California market? And most importantly, what did you think about that question about Royal Caribbean bringing bigger ships to the LA market? Let me know in the comments below. While you're down below our video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets you know of a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. We'll talk again real soon.